cold concrete crown. In the Bronx, winter wasn't a season, it was a condition. Concrete held the cold like memory, and the wind cut between buildings as if the city itself were testing who deserved to stay. Elias Cruz learned early that warmth was earned, not given. His mother worked nights. His father disappeared quietly, the way men do when they understand they're unnecessary. What remained was silence, responsibility, and the rhythm of survival. Machiavelli would have approved of the lesson Elias learned before he learned the name: reliance on others is a weakness unless you control the terms. At 15, Elias stopped asking for help. At 18, he stopped explaining himself. The Bronx admired noise, flash, bravado, reputation, but Elias moved differently. He watched. He listened. He absorbed. While others chased visibility, he chose distance. Isolation became his discipline. He worked jobs no one respected: warehouse nights, delivery mornings, construction weekends. His body hardened, but more importantly, his patience did. Men rise not by fortune, Machiavelli wrote, but by foresight. Elias saved everything: money, information, favors. He understood that power in New York didn't come from shouting the loudest, it came from being necessary without being obvious. By his mid-20s, people began to notice him not because he demanded attention, but because he solved problems. Quietly. Reliably. Someone needed logistics moved without questions? Elias. Someone needed introductions without exposure? Elias. He never bragged, never threatened. He let outcomes speak. That restraint unnerved people. Isolation sharpened him. While others got drunk on loyalty, Elias remembered another principle: men are faithful when it benefits them. So he built systems, not friendships. Agreements, not emotions. He was fair, but never sentimental. Generous, but never dependent. New York respects two things: consistency and results. Elias delivered both. As his influence grew, so did admiration, not the loud kind, but the dangerous kind. People defended him without being asked. They repeated his name carefully. In rooms he hadn't entered yet, decisions were made with him in mind. That was power approaching the top of the food chain, not dominance through fear, but through inevitability. He dressed simply. Lived modestly. Trained alone. Because Machiavelli warned that luxury softens rulers, and Elias intended to rule his life completely. By 35, he owned stakes across the city, logistics companies, real estate shells, supply routes that fed industries most people never saw. He didn't posture like a king. He moved like infrastructure. Remove him, and systems failed. The Bronx watched with a mix of pride and disbelief. Kids whispered his name the way previous generations spoke of legends, not because he escaped the grind, but because he never stopped honoring it. When asked once why he never celebrated, Elias answered simply: celebration signals an ending. I'm still building. At the top of the food chain, he remained alone, not lonely, but deliberate. Machiavelli understood this truth well: the higher you rise, the fewer you trust. Elias trusted the grind. The process. The discipline that raised him when no one else could. New York didn't crown him. It adjusted around him. And in a city that devours the weak and exposes the careless, that was the highest form of respect. Chapter 2: The Geometry of Silence. Power did not announce itself when it arrived. It settled in quietly, like dust in a room no one entered anymore. Elias learned this on a Tuesday night in Midtown, standing alone in an office 30 floors above the street. Below him, New York pulsed: sirens, headlights, ambition layered on ambition, but none of it reached him anymore. He had climbed high enough that the noise blurred into abstraction. Machiavelli warned that distance is both protection and poison. The higher Elias rose, the more silence followed. Calls became shorter. Meetings became efficient. Disagreements disappeared, not because they didn't exist, but because no one dared voice them. This was the first danger of real power: when opposition vanishes, truth often goes with it. So Elias created friction on purpose. He kept advisors who disagreed with him. He paid them well, not for loyalty, but for honesty. He rotated alliances the way generals rotate troops: never long enough for comfort, never short enough for chaos. Stability, he understood, was not stillness. It was managed tension. Alone in that office, Elias thought about the Bronx, not nostalgically, but analytically. Hunger had given him clarity. Scarcity had taught him hierarchy. When resources were limited, you learned quickly who mattered, who endured, and who performed only when watched. New York was the same system scaled up. The city was a food chain pretending to be a community. Most people misunderstood Machiavelli, thinking he preached cruelty. Elias knew better. Machiavelli preached accuracy. He wrote for men who had to decide when mercy weakened authority and when force invited rebellion. He understood that morality without context was just vanity. Elias never ruled through fear alone. Fear burns fast. He ruled through predictability. People knew exactly what happened when they crossed him and exactly what happened when they aligned correctly. This clarity was his mercy. There were no celebrations where he could relax. No relationships untouched by calculation. Even generosity had consequences. Every gift created a debt, and Elias hated unmeasured liabilities. So he gave rarely and deliberately. At times, he wondered whether the grind had shaped him or hollowed him. That question mattered. Because Machiavelli also warned that a prince who forgets why he rules will eventually rule nothing but an empty throne. Elias walked to the window and placed his hand against the cold glass. Below, a man argued with a cab driver. Somewhere, someone was sleeping in a train station. Somewhere else, a kid was learning the same lessons Elias once did, learning that the world rewards preparation, not hope. The deeper truth revealed itself then. Power wasn't about reaching the top of the food chain. It was about remaining necessary without becoming isolated from reality. The strongest predator, after all, still needs to hunt. Elias began shifting again, not upward, but inward. He invested in people who showed discipline over talent. He funded operations that produced competence, not dependence. He watched closely who thrived without supervision. Those were the future. Those were the ones who understood the grind wasn't about dominance, but self-command. New York didn't need another tyrant. It needed systems that outlived personalities. And Elias, shaped by cold concrete and quiet resolve, chose a harder path than conquest, legacy without worship. Because the most Machiavellian truth of all was this: the man who needs to be remembered has already lost control.